Podcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hi there, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much for joining us for today's second of three presentations. Today we have a very interesting session planned for you, which I believe you're going to really enjoy. Very much a different to most of the keynote sessions. What we are going to encourage today, as with all our sessions, is lots of engagement and interactions. So we're going to have a series of questions that we are going to go through today. And after each question, after the coaches that are on board to speak to you, our thought leaders panels, our faculty, I should say, we will have an opportunity for you to ask them questions. So please post your questions in the chat box on the right-hand side as part of your control panel. As always, we would encourage you to also post your comments and feedback on the Facebook wall after the session. You can find that at facebook.com/WBECS. If you are part of the Twitter sphere, please post with the tweet hashtag WBECS. In fact, now on Facebook, you can in fact use hashtags. And so you can put the hashtag WBECS on any status updates as well. So that'd be awesome and fantastic. Okay, so without further ado, I would like to introduce to you our super duper panel today. To begin with, we have Darren Robson. Now, Darren is one of the directors of the Association for Coaching, works very closely with Catherine Tolp, who was on the panel yesterday. Darren is both a serial, purposeful entrepreneur and an emerging global leader in coaching. He is a thought leader with work spanning coaching, mentoring, and advisory services to leading organizations and entrepreneurs to improve performance, motivational speaking at conferences and organizational events, and philanthropy, social innovation, and making a positive impact to less privileged young people. And he does a huge amount of work in this area. As an author, Darren has recently produced recently produced articles and films on interviews with over 40 leading CEOs, focusing on how they work and what makes them tick. He is currently working on a new book on purposeful entrepreneurship, and this new book will include interviews with these 40 leading purposeful entrepreneurs and leaders. I encourage you wholeheartedly to get that book. Okay, secondly, I would like to introduce Renee Friedman. Now, Renee is a professional coach, consultant, and co-founder of Supported. Renee is passionate about creating collaborative experiences, regardless if it's a coach collaborating with clients or as a consultant designing processes for organizations to use for collaborative endeavors. She works with leaders and organizations deeply committed to changing broken systems, introducing social innovation, and changing the accepted paradigm to one that makes a difference. Combining her 30 years of professional experience, education, and interests, she works with clients who have an unstoppable need to make a positive, discernible impact in their organization, their community, or the world. Now, Renee co-founded Supported, which is the coaching support program for TED Fellows. Now, I'm sure many of you are very familiar with TED and the videos and the TED Talks. And it's an organization that's devoted to ideas worth sharing. And the fellows embody that vision by developing ideas that literally change the world. With Supported, she has matched 300 fellows with world-class coaches and mentors. Third up, we have Patrick Williams, who is an author, speaker, and coach trainer, and Honorable Vice President of the International Society for Coaching Psychology. Patrick Williams, EDED, MCC, is founder of the Institute for Life Coach Training, the first of its kind training institute that specializes in training psychotherapists, psychologists, counselors, and helping professionals in building a successful coaching practice. He is a licensed psychologist who began executive coaching in 1990 with Hewlett-Packard, IBM, and Kodak. He was a founding member of the ICF and an International Coach Federation board director. He's co-authored 3 books: Therapist as Coach, Transforming Your Practice, Total Life Coaching, 50 plus life lessons, skills and techniques to enhance your practice and your life, and Becoming a Professional Life Coach, lessons from the Institute for Life Coach Training. He is a sought-after speaker, appearing at coach conferences and educational institutions worldwide. Now, Pat is passionate to bring the power of the coach approach to the undeserved or underserved populations around the globe through his non-profit, Coaching the Global Village, which I encourage you to check out. Now, last and certainly not least, we have Donna Steinhorn. Now, Donna is a passionate leader, executive coach, and can I just do one thing before I carry on? I just want to pause and can I just mute everybody just for a second, because we've got some typing. I don't want everyone to miss. I'm just going to quickly mute everyone. This is one of the challenges you sometimes get when you have such a huge number of presenters. Anyway, let me go back to Donna. Let me start again for you, Donna. Donna is a passionate leader, executive coach, serial entrepreneur, and advisor to non-profit organizations. She is an executive, mentor, and life coach with more than 30 years of corporate and business experience. She works directly with clients and develops and leads conferences and multiple projects. She's also the co-founder of Serendipitous Events, who produces the Conversation Amongst Masters and Camelot annual events, which I know are very popular. They're designed exclusively for master coaches and attended by some of the top coaches in the entire world. She's also the co-founder of the non-profit The Coach Initiative, whose mission is to be the central gathering point where professional coaches can volunteer their experience and expertise in support of global projects that focus on the betterment of the human condition and uplifting of the human spirit. Donna holds both ICF and IAC credentials. So we have such an illustrious group of speakers today. It's my absolute pleasure to bring them to the stage. And now I believe, you're going to have to bear with me 2 seconds while I flick back to this. I'm going to be handing over to Darren. Over to you, Darren.
Thanks ever so much, Ben, and thank you to everyone that's joined us today. The slide that you have in front of you gives you an overview of the areas that we want to cover. So we've really thought about the coaching approach to social transformation, and so we're going to share with you some of the things that are important to us, what's inspired us to create the organisations that we've done, and just a small bit about those organisations. We're going to share with you what the coaching approach to social transformation means for us individually and then collectively. We're going to share some of the success stories that we're seeing through our various different communities and how we're really seeing coaching as a philosophy and an approach making a contribution and difference to people across the world. We're going to share some top tips, some lessons learned, and also some ideas to hopefully inspire. We've got a lot of collective wisdom on this, and hopefully we can really give you some top tips on how to bring your own ideas and initiatives forward. And then final thoughts and questions. What we've agreed as a panel with Ben is that at the end of each of the sections, we're very open to having any questions, so we can really focus those questions around the initial section that we've just gone through. But there'll also be a Q&A section at the end. So that's enough about the context. Now we'll just give you a bit about what's inspired us. So this is who we are and what's really inspired us to create our organisations. So as Ben's kindly shared with you, I've personally been involved in the world of coaching since 2002, when I first trained with Coactive Coaching all the way back then. And then back in 2003, I got to meet 2 really wonderful people, Catherine Tolper and Alex Zarbo, who are the founding partners of the Association for Coaching, which was originally built in the UK. And I just fell in love with their vision, fell in love with who they were. And as somebody that had really benefited from the world of coaching, I really wanted to get involved. For those of you that don't know about the Association for Coaching, last year it was our 10th year, back into 2012. We've got representatives in over 40 countries, and I'm very proud to serve on the global board of the Association for Coaching. So I look after strategic partnerships, currently looking after finance, not my background, but the thing I'm really proud of is our drive towards social innovation, which is about how we can support our coaching community to really make a difference out in the world. And what I love about the AC is that it's a collaborative network. We don't look at it as the Association for Coaching. We look at it as how we can be in service of the coaching communities across the world. And I'm very proud to have been involved with the Global Coaching and Mentoring Alliance, with the ICF and EMCC as well, which is really fantastic. On my journey towards being involved in the Association for Coaching, I found I have a real deep passion to make a contribution and difference to children and young people that don't necessarily come from a wealthy background. And that has really come from my own personal experience. So as a young person, as a child, I wasn't particularly gifted educationally. In fact, I was a failure in the eyes of education. So I left school at 16 with no qualifications, and went on my journey and found myself in engineering, which really wasn't what I was about. So I really started off on the wrong track. Long story short, I realised I'd made a mistake. I ended up with a first-class honours degree. I ended up with a master's from a really wonderfully established university in the UK, and then I joined Deloitte Consulting. So I went from a really poor background into an environment where I was surrounded by wealth of ideas and opportunities. And that really game-changed my life. And so what I wanted to do was create something with my brothers and sisters and I that really could make a difference to people's lives. And that's where Mo and the Ministry of Entrepreneurship and the Mo Foundation has come from. Back in 2000, unfortunately, my mum died at 52. Very suddenly, and when that happens, as any of you have had that happen to you, you're kind of left feeling pretty sorry for yourselves, for a short period of time. But one of the things that we set out to do when we were at her funeral was we said one day we will set up a community that helps young children and young people from poor backgrounds. So that was back in 2000, and then in January 2012 we launched Mo Foundation. So just to get you very quickly up to speed with where Mo is. Currently, to date, we've gifted just under £200,000 of development to over 88, nearly 90 young people. By the end of 2013, we would have qualified 125 young people in our 5-day population have received that free. And we've also built out in Tanzania a chicken farm. Yes, I know, very random, but we built a chicken farm that helps that poor community to feed itself. But what it also does is the money and the profits that are made from that then help to set up small social entrepreneurs and small entrepreneurs out in Tanzania. And so the way to see it is that Mo is a community for purposeful entrepreneurs, coaches and leaders. And we've got about 40 to 50 coaches and about 30 mentors working with young people, principally in the UK, but we're doing, as we say, work in Tanzania and some work in Africa. Here is just a quick shot of some of the young people that we've got that have recently qualified in the Mo Coach program. And then down the bottom there are some of the women that we're working with in Tanzania. So a couple of the women that are in there actually own the chicken farm that we've built. And then what you can see in the middle is our little Mo character. And we've got a children's book that's free for anyone that's got a young child and they want to learn the European alphabet. So that's a very quick overview of Association for Coaching and Mo. And so what I'd like to do now is pass over to Renee.
Thank you, Darren. So when we started the Support TED program in 2009 for the TED Fellows, It was myself and Ruth Ann Harnish. Ruth Ann was instrumental philanthropically in the establishment of the TED Fellows program. And she noticed that part of their agenda did not include coaching. So we had a conversation and we came up with the concept of Support TED, a way to really support the TED Fellows. What we noticed with them was that they were invited to a conference where there's lots of successful people that wanted to coach them. They had these brilliant ideas that were not yet at fruition, and they didn't have that middle bridge, the part that says, the part that helped them go from where they were with the ideas to successful fruition. So that's why we brought in coaching, and we also brought in mentoring for them. One of the things that we love most about the program is that we get to interact with these brilliant thinkers, and brilliant they are. So they come with ideas that are off the charts. However, many of their personal issues are just like anybody else's. They're low in confidence. They don't know where to start, and they need the coaching. So we provide coaches and mentors in order to accelerate the launch of their projects and to help them have a more collective approach to what they're putting out in the world. So it's a great opportunity for coaches to get involved. Many coaches come to coaching without realizing that most of their clients are going to be organizational or personal with basic issues. They come with dreams to do something big and make an impact, and Support TED allows them to do that. And the other thing that we do besides the coaching and the mentoring is that we have the Support TED Collaboratorium. And this is the live interactive process once a year where selected TED Fellows are given a team of coaches and mentors to work on anything they want to work on for 3.5 days. And we've been very successful in the past with this, and we're continuing to do that. We are very selective with our coaches. We get love letters all the time from the fellows saying, "Thank you, this makes a difference." And the TED organization believes that the coaching and mentoring makes a difference between pipe dreams and actual impact in the world. So that you'll see next is a slide from the last year's Collaboratorium, which shows the coaches, mentors, the TED staff, and the TED Fellows all together at the end of the weekend after a very successful collaboration. So Patrick, it's up to you now.
All right, on to me. Thank you, Renee. So, so my story, I guess I'll just start with how I entered my education. I was looking to become somebody involved in helping people live more optimally. And so I kept taking psychology, and lo and behold, I became a psychologist, much to my chagrin. But my studies were in humanistic and transpersonal psychology, so you can understand I didn't really embrace Freud and the over-analysis of human problems, in my view. So I started being a clinical psychologist in 1980, even though I had written my dissertation on the evolution of consciousness as a young 27-year-old idealist, and now I'm a much older idealist, because if somebody doesn't hang on to ideals, who's going to, right? I then started doing executive coaching in 1990. As part of my psychology practice and consulting practice, and it just really started a buzz in me. I soon then heard about the growth of coaching kind of in a more populist view. It had been coaching in executive circles for quite a while, and it wasn't well known out there in the everyday world. But when Coach University, Coach Training Institute, and all of those first few started in the early 90s, I jumped ship and closed my psychology practice, became a full-time coach, and then if you fast forward, wrote a couple of books, started speaking around the world on coaching, started a Coach Training Institute, Institute for Life Coach Training in 1998, and I sold that a year ago. But in between all of that, I had this inspiration that, gosh, if I've had the fortune to coach high-level leaders and top executives and seeing the power of coaching there, and then train highly educated people who had the resources to take the training and build their business, I thought, well, wouldn't it be great if the power of this coaching approach could reach the, at the time I said, underserved, undervalued, underhoused, underfed, underappreciated of the world in my idealistic way. And so I had this idea, wrote a thought paper called Coaching the Global Village, sent it to 10 friends sheepishly and said, what do you think of this? Don't share it with anybody, but what do you think of this? And then they said, well, could I share it with somebody? And the momentum started. Ironically, Renee, I then got a grant from Ruth Ann Harnish, who nominated me, actually made me the first Global Visionary Fellow when she had the Foundation of Coaching, for my idea called Coaching the Global Village. And then I was asked to present at the ICF conference in Brussels, Belgium, and I said, but it's just an idea. We haven't done anything yet. And they said, well, we want you to present on the idea. And I remember we had 80-some people in the room, and we just had a dialogue. And that's what this is about. Coaching the Global Village is about having dialogues with the people that make a difference, but also what I've come to call the unusual voices, those people who should be in the room who are not. So when you start talking about social transformation and change, I think I've always been about learning what helps people not tick, but what helps people tick louder, what helps people live optimally. And I think coaching really is about the evolution of consciousness. We can say it's about awareness, increasing awareness and choices and the ability for our clients to respond. But it's really about, well, what then? Then what happens? So the mission of my Coaching the Global Village is up there on the PowerPoint, and you can read that. But in a nutshell, we don't provide coaching. What we do instead is provide a train-the-trainer model of teaching folks to have a coaching-like conversation. We really think it's almost reintroducing the lost art of conversation. And we want to leave the ability for people who've had our training to continue having these creative leadership conversations to solve problems at their local level. To not need consultants to keep coming back necessarily until they need connected to resources. So that's where I'm at today. I still coach a little bit. I still am director of training at the Institute for Life Coach Training, but my passion and my legacy are residing with Coaching the Global Village and how that is a collaborative process. It's not me keeping people sequestered in my nonprofit. Anybody who's a coach and wants to become a representative of Coaching the Global Village can do so. I just think that's a good moniker to put things under. And I'll just say lastly, I had the idealistic vision in the beginning because I did a trek in Tanzania and we connected with an NGO there, and then other places in Africa, Ghana, Cameroon, Tanzania, Kenya, and then Jamaica, Haiti most recently in French, although I didn't do it, 2 of my French-Canadian coaches did. But I came to realize a year or so ago that, all this business about working over there, somewhere else far away in the world, the remote regions of the world, also applies to right here. Turn around, look in your own backyard. So those of you listening to this, I hope are inspired to find a way to bring the coach approach to the underserved or the resource poor communities, organizations in your own environment. And that's what it's about right now for me. So I'd like to pass the torch now on to Donna.
Well, thank you, Patrick. Patrick said that he was an idealist, and I believe that all coaches are idealists. It's one of the reasons we get into the work, because we do have this unfailingly optimistic approach to helping people find their vision, support their vision, increase their belief in themselves, work more effectively. Basically, our goals are to improve the world. And even before I became a coach, I sat on many nonprofit boards, the Junior League, the Red Cross, Family and Children's Services, hospitals, and I learned how difficult it was, both from the board side and from the employee side, to function in a world where funding often dries up and people have various agendas when they sit on those boards or work in those organizations. And while everybody wants to do good work, they don't always know the best way to do that. So fast forward, I left corporate America, I left the nonprofit board world, and became a coach in the late 1990s, and worked in several large coaching organizations and coach training organizations. I was the executive vice president of a training organization, and like Patrick, trained a lot of people. And yet there was something still missing. And often talked with my students and with my clients who said, they really wanted to give back in some way to the world, and would take on pro bono clients, but it wasn't having a huge impact. When several years later I began to collaborate with Babette Reeder and Guy Stickney on Conversation Among Masters, Babette and I both sat down and said, there's something else we've always wanted to do. We've always wanted, in the large organizations that we worked in, to have some sort of charitable initiative, and yet it always seemed so difficult to start. And so we just decided we would do it, and jokingly said we'd like to work with the Clinton Initiative or the Virgin Foundation, and thought, why not? And so we sent off a couple of letters and emails and made some phone calls, and the next thing we knew, we were working with some of the projects from the Virgin Foundation, and we put together a board and became a 501c3, and it just kind of took on a life of its own. Like Patrick and Renee, Ruth Ann Harnish was our first funder. So Ruth Ann has her fingers in a lot of nonprofit organizations. She does amazing work. And to date, we have worked with over 25 organizations in countries all over the world. We've worked with organizations in the Middle East, in Africa, in the United States, in Canada, in South America. It really has been amazing. The vast variety, from museums to Free the Children to the Israeli-Palestinian Peace Initiative that we've had coaches working on. And it's really very exciting to be able to bring together. We work mostly with master level coaches who volunteer for us, and to be able to bring that coaching approach to not only the leaders of the nonprofit organizations, but often to their constituents and their employees, to help them achieve their mission. And really the types of input we get from them has been very expanding, and I'll talk about that later, but it's amazing. As Renee said, they get love letters. We get love letters too, and to know that we're not only doing good for them, but they're taking that love out into the world is really, really quite exciting. I also am an executive and life coach, work in Fortune 500 companies as well as with individuals and coaches, and also a board member of the Transformational Leadership Council, which is an organization that was founded by Jack Canfield 9 years ago. And there are about 120 of us, not just coaches, but authors and speakers and people doing good work, entertainers in the world. And I think almost to a man and woman, each of us are involved in some sort of nonprofit endeavor, whether it's a foundation or a charity that we support, or many of us have begun our own. So, it's really exciting to see the impact that coaching and other change makers in the world are having in the nonprofit world. Ben, over to you.
Well, thank you very much.
We're going to take some questions.
Yeah, we are. Sorry, I always have a bit of a delay because I mute myself. Okay, so the first question, we're actually going to be passing on to Renee. So Renee, I've just posted the question down for you. Can you see that? Hello, Renee, are you there? Okay, we'll go on to the next question. So, Donna, have you thought about making a difference in India, doing some work in India? Um,
Yeah, we're open to doing work anywhere that people are looking for our help. We have an application form up on the Coach Initiative website, coachinitiative.org, for both coaches to apply, but certainly for nonprofits to apply to us, to work with us. And we do have coaches all over the globe, so the time zone issue generally is not a problem, and I absolutely encourage you to go and put in your application, and we'll be in touch very, very quickly.
just to let everybody know, thank you for that, Donna. Just to let everybody know, the last slide, when we get to final questions, you will actually find that there are the contact details of all of our panelists today. So you will be able to make contact, and they will be able to point you in the right direction of how you can find out more information about getting involved. I think that's the most important thing. So I've got lots and lots of questions around how can I get involved. I mean, there's probably about 30 how can I get involved for all of the various projects as you've gone through. So what I would say is just wait until right at the end, and then take down the details of the panelists who you resonate the most with, and then you will be able to make contact with them, and they will be able to forward on to you some next steps. So what I'd like to say at this point is perhaps we can move on. And Darren, is it over? Oh, let me double check. Who am I passing on to? Sorry, Renee.
So I'll answer the question first and then I'll move on. So we choose coaches for Support TED based on an FAQ requirement that you could find on the website we list at the end of the slides. And those qualifications we check out by vetting somebody. So as far as social transformation goes, one of the things that really inspires us and means to us is that we get, through Support TED, we get to really harness and leverage the collective impact of coaching in very many different domains. It could be science, education, art, medicine. So being able to do that allows us to have an extended reach in the world as coaches, and it also allows the fellows to get all of our network behind them, which happens often with the coaches. They will say, I know somebody that does this, and they connect, or that, and then they connect the fellow. And very often those connections go a long way for them. We love the opportunity to do good work, and when we can help socially transform the world through coaching and through people that have every resource at their hands, it just means that there'll be more impact and more good in the world, and that's what's important to us. Patrick?
Yeah, thank you, Renee. I alluded earlier that I think if you really were in a room of coaches and could get them to answer truthfully, they'd say coaching really is about the evolution of consciousness. We may not use that term with our clients, where we're helping to increase awareness and change within individuals and organizations. But awareness is what? Awareness is consciousness. It's being more aware of choices and responses ahead of you, behaviors and ideals that maybe aren't presenting themselves in a useful way, and to be more optimal, what can you do? So social transformation, let's look at that word. Change is constant. We can guarantee that things are going to change. But to be transformative, transformation, I think, is periodic. Sometimes it happens by purposeful transformation. People went about to transform something, and indeed they did. But most of the time in history, it's been a surprise. Most of the time it occurred because something happened outside the box. Somebody asked a question that hadn't been asked before. And let's face it, that's what coaching is about, asking questions that neither one of you know the answer to. So if I go back to that idea of the evolution of consciousness, here's why we believe, all of us on this panel and all of us involved in this, coaching can be informative and transformative in this whole social consciousness arena is because if you just watch the news, read the newspapers, read the periodicals at the grocery stand, you're going to think human beings haven't evolved very much. It's pretty disastrous and depressing. And yet we all know there's tremendous stories of evolution of consciousness and evolution of humanity and good works going on in the world. And it doesn't get in the daily sight that people have. It's in the blind spots. It's in the shadow where the light isn't shining. So if we can help with that, social transformation will occur. Social transformation using a coach approach allows people who maybe didn't think they could be part of the leadership conversation are. Because as my friend Margaret Wheatley says, everybody's a leader as soon as they step up to be part of the solution. And so that's what I think the coach approach to social transformation really means to me, and why we've created a way to train people in the coach approach rather than to become coaches, but to be conscious about creative leadership conversations using the concepts of evocative questions and experimenting and asking what if and acting as if and all the things we learn in coaching rather than someone telling you what to do to fix your problem. Donna, your thoughts?
Thanks, Patrick. You know, riffing on what Patrick just said, Thomas Leonard, who many of you will know as one of the early founders of this incarnation of coaching, said early on that his vision was for everyone to be a coach. And I know back in the day, a lot of the coaches thought that was just a terrible idea. I mean, they felt very threatened by it, but that really is the way we need to go. Imagine coaches as teachers and coaches as business leaders and coaches as politicians even. It would have a very different approach to the world's problems, of which we have many. So the coach approach to social transformation is, I think, the most important way to make change happen. And, you know, it's facilitating individuals, organizations, constituents of organizations to generate their own solutions, as Patrick said, by asking the questions that maybe they've thought of, but they've never actually had to answer. And when they speak to a coach, it generally does help them to dig a little deeper and come up with their own solutions, ideas, and actions. I think the coach approach to social transformation helps because when you approach things in that manner, you're observing, you're listening without an agenda, you're really acknowledging what other people have to say in that deep listening way that coaches have. And you're encouraging them to look for creative solutions, to look for collaborations, to take their passion and see that there are many ways of getting to it. But even more importantly, I think, to hold their vision in the biggest way possible. Often when I approach an engagement with a nonprofit, you know, their biggest vision is, you know, to get a certain amount of funding or, you know, to get a little PR. And I always encourage them to think scary big and to approach what they're doing from that really huge vision, and lo and behold, often that really begins to make things happen. So I think that's why coaching works. You know, we are optimistic, we are idealistic, and we believe it will happen, so it does. Darren.
Thanks, Donna. I think for me, I just love being involved in the coaching profession. I absolutely love it. And the reason I love it is because for me, coaching isn't about a set of skills and capabilities and behaviors. It's actually about a philosophy in life. And, you know, I'm very lucky to know Sir John Whitmore, as I know many of you on the call do, and I know most of my panel colleagues do. And I know that John, some years ago, was part of the Be the Change community. And I remember challenging him recently, as less than 2 years ago. I said, I think the really important moment for us as a coaching profession is when we step out of being the change, step beyond leading the change, to really leading the charge. And I think that's the thing that really excites me, is this crossover as we break the rules of the coaching game in some ways. So I think there's that. I think there's a shift. I work in organisations all the time, and there is a shift happening, but it takes some time. And that shift is we're moving from return on investment, and as we get more conscious leaders, to Patrick's point, I think we're going to move more towards return on contribution. And I think that that's a bigger purpose than just return on investment. So I think that's really exciting. And I think the reason that's happening, and I think coaching and the movement of coaching and humanistic psychology and transpersonal psychology is helping us go from external validation into the inner game, which is all about the inside out. And I think that we're privileged as coaching and as a profession, as individuals, to really help people on that journey. And then I think about the fact that the word philanthropy means the love of the humankind. And I think actually that's what we're about often as coaches. And then I start thinking about purposeful entrepreneurship, which is a real passion of mine. And that's about, loving kindness in action. So really taking an idea like all of the guys on the panel have done and really bring it alive. And I think that there's a move again. We often know about people, planet and profit, but I believe also there's another P, which is about purpose. And the more that we can get into the legacy of someone, the more we can get into their underlying core purpose and what are they going to do to leave this world slightly better, I think that we're in great service of their development as a human being. And I think the final thing, which is really meaningful to me, as somebody who's got two young daughters, a 6-year-old and a 3-year-old, is that we all know that the planet has some problems. And we also know that most of those problems are created through our own behaviours. So I think the most interesting thing is about the fact that we really start to help people to be in service of the long-term sustainable health of this planet, not just humankind, but the whole ecosystem. And so that's a very big picture and a very big vision. But it starts with every individual, to Patrick's point about being very local in the way that you help people. So that's what I wanted to share. So Ben, over to you for questions.
Thank you very much for that, Darren. Okay, so got a really good question here. I'm trying to think who I'm going to ask. I'm going to look at the alphabet and ask Donna first. So Donna, how do we balance the need to create revenue and the desire to help where coaching is most needed and where often it cannot be afforded?
I think that's a really great question. So, I get it depends. If you're going to start a foundation, understand that you need to have sufficient funding, whether it comes from your own person, your own work, or whether you get a major donor. If you're just looking to work with a population that can't afford you, then again, you either need to look for funding or you need to be hugely successful in other areas of your business or your coaching or additional things that you do so that you have the funding so that your needs are taken care of. And then you can devote some time to the nonprofit that speaks to your heart. I think that the biggest problem that I see with coaches who want to work with populations who can't afford them is that they limit themselves to that. And then they can't continue to do it because they're not taking care of their own needs. So, be successful in your own right or get funding. That doesn't mean that you have to spend all of your time doing that work. You have to find a balance.
Thank you for that, Donna. Okay, I think this is coming back to Darren. Can you please expand on leading the charge and how that happens? It sounds wonderful and exciting, Christina says.
Okay, I think, I wrote a piece recently about the rise of the coaching leader, and I'm very happy to share that with anyone, and Ben, I can give that to you. And some people, and forgive the language, but some people, the zealots of the coaching world, will look at me and go, well, Darren, you're breaking all the rules. And one of the big rules that I think we need to challenge within coaching is about not having an agenda. And I think that it's okay for me to have an agenda, and I'm very explicit about that agenda. I don't try and bring it into the coaching, But my philosophy is not just to be a coach. So my philosophy is to be a coach, a mentor, a challenger, a positive agitator. So for me, leading the charge is a bit like all of my esteemed panel members are doing. We're not talking about making a difference. We're actually getting off our backsides and we're making it happen. And we're starting very humbly, very small. So if my own experience, what's happened is I started Mo Foundation with my own money. I've invested that money and grown it over the last 18 months. But what's happening now is so many people are hearing about it, including corporates. They're now coming to me and saying, Darren, how can you do this in our organisation? How can our people get involved? And so now, even though I didn't start with that perspective, I'm actually, there's opportunities emerging for me whilst I'm doing what I'm really passionate about. So just to answer the question that Donna did as well. So for me, leading the charge is about really saying we do have an agenda around certain things. We do believe in these things. They are stakes in the ground, and making a contribution and a difference is one of them. And that's true for me, so I'm going to be really honest about that. And I'm not going to separate my coaching hat from who I am as a human being. So my coaching philosophy and my philosophy in life are aligned. So that's what I mean by leading the charge. It's about taking positive action that really makes a contribution and difference to a community you really believe in. So for me, because of my background, because of my life experience, I wanted to help young children from poor backgrounds. I've started to older people, we've got the elderly coming in, we've got people from organisations, we've got all sorts of different people starting to get involved in Mo, even though that's not where I began from. So it's the kind of law of unexpected consequences. So that's my answer, Ben.
Thanks a lot for that, Darren. Darren, you must read a lot of Buckminster Fuller, by any chance. A lot of the things that you've said resonate with me. Not really. Okay. Well, I've read a lot of Buckminster, and a lot of his work is resonated with you. Anyhow,
I was going to say, Darren, you should.
Yeah, I was going to say, Darren. Yeah, you totally should. He's so well aligned with everything you've said there, like completely aligned. So anyhow, so I've got another question here for Patrick. Patrick, would you be able to describe the path to influencing leaders and political groups in countries around the world?
Oh, I wish I could. I think the path is to start at a grassroots level because we don't have the inroads into political groups. But what are political groups influenced by? The people that they influence. So I think my larger goal in the coach approach, spreading as a movement, would be for people to start having those conversations on the street corner and under the baobab tree and in the marketplace that start to have people thinking outside their normal state of affairs. And just like we've seen on social media and some of the events around the world, all of a sudden that can spread, and leaders, people in a position of leadership, are not necessarily the leaders. We believe, I think the coaching philosophy is that leadership is an activity, not a position. But a lot of people are in the position of leadership and really don't lead. They dictate, they rule. So I think that's a tough question. It's a great one to dialogue about. We have to remember that Socrates asked a lot of questions, and look what happened to him. But somebody's got to be willing to keep asking the questions, and maybe the phrase that one of my colleagues used, I think it was Darren, be a positive agitator. I see myself as a positive agitator. And we're not preaching or proselytizing. The coach approach is just being an inquiry, wondering, being curious. And I think if you can create dialogues that do that anywhere, the movement will spread.
Thank you for that. And just finally, before we move on, Renee, I'm just going to post something down for you. But are you able to comment on financial support? So how organizations receive the money to maintain projects?
Yes, I can talk a little bit about that. So support that helps with fundraising strategy quite a bit for the fellows. They usually come into it and don't know how to attract either angel investor funds or foundations to make contributions. So we do provide a lot of fundraising coaching, and we don't encourage the coaches to provide the financial support, but there's a lot of philanthropists that are members of the TED organization that give money to the fellows projects. So help them create the strategy. They go out, they attend TED conferences, they make presentations, and then they get the financial support. We're lucky the Harnish Philanthropies support us, so we don't have to go out and look for money. However, the fellows certainly need funding for their projects, and we help them find ways to do so and to get that funding. Thanks. Thank you, Darren.
Thank you. Okay, are we handing back over to Darren now?
Yes, Patrick, we're moving on into some stories of success and how coaching has made a contribution and a difference. And as we met as a team to talk about our presentation, it became clear that we all were moved to create some sort of legacy. And I think for me, I hope it's a living legacy. I want to be here when that legacy occurs. But if not, I also wanted to grow after. Because what I got from my life and from falling into the field of coaching and really influencing the lives of a lot of people I coach, but influencing more the people I've trained in the coaching process. Now through the nonprofit, Coaching the Global Village, I've had the opportunity to see change take place in villages in Tanzania and Ghana and Cameroon, et cetera, and Haiti, and that's fabulous. And we've got some ongoing projects through a funder in Kenya and in India, and they're small, and raising the funds is always a challenge. We always use a collaborative approach to do that. But my legacy right now seems to have come to me from an unlikely source. There's two programs that I'm working on right now that are like, when I say look in your own backyard. We're using the coach approach here in our local school system with kids that are at risk coming back to get their GED and do job training. We call it Road to Success, and it seems to be building by using the coach approach in a way to mentor these young kids to redesign their life, and it's having tremendous success. So that feels good to me locally. Train some local people. We're starting to have conversations with teachers about being learning coaches in addition to being teachers. So there seems to be a movement afoot here locally that I hope can be replicated in a larger way, which is where the umbrella of Coaching the Global Village would be, willing to instrument that. But the other thing came to me oddly, and this is the one I'll just focus on here briefly. I got a letter about 9 months ago from a man with a Middle Eastern name and an email, and I thought, oh, geez, my maybe used to the emails I get, I thought, oh, this is going to be spam. But I read it, and it was from a prisoner in a federal prison who wrote the most eloquent letter that just captivated my spirit. And since then, he and I have become friends, even though we haven't met in person. We're going to soon. He's been in prison 20 years, and he gets out in about a month. Two things have happened with that. He came to me because he found one of my books and used it in the prison to have a group coaching enclave with 10 other men, and it's just changed their life. They report things like better communication with their relatives when they come, less conflict with the interracial, cultural rifts that happen within a prison, and many other things that are just anecdotal at this point. We're plotting some research in this way. And now we've given them 10 men a 40-hour training in the coach approach, free, and it's just unbelievable what's occurring within the prison. Now this gentleman, Talib, I have the permission to use his name, and he's written on my website, when he gets out, wants to be a coach to young people, in a nutshell, to help them avoid prison, to help them make choices in their life through coaching and mentoring so that they maybe make different choices than he did at a young age, and also to coach people who get out of prison and don't want to go back, or we don't want them to go back. The recidivism rate, as you all know, is like 67 to 80%. And it's not only a monetization that you can do with that, but it's a, what's the word you used, Darren, earlier, a return on effort or something. It's, these people want to be purposeful human beings. And if they get out of prison, how can coaching be instilled in that opportunity to help them make new choices and help those around them, help them succeed? So those two things to me are really becoming a powerful legacy for me. I've developed a very incredible friendship with Talib. I'm going to visit him when he gets out in the city he goes back to. I'm also going to federal prison in a month. So I will be congratulating these men on their graduation, as well as giving a keynote talk to the entire prison. And I think, to me, if you could see the size of my smile right now, that is the legacy that I feel that I'm leaving, that came to me without me efforting it. My wife says very brilliantly, because I always have plenty of ideas spinning around and notepads written down and sticky notes everywhere. This one came to me. I didn't think of it. He read my book, wrote me an email, told me what he was already doing, and all I had to do was endorse it and say, go for it. And so right now, that to me is a living legacy, and I'm excited about it. Donna, what story might you have?
You know, Patrick, I actually have had several experiences of the coaching approach in prisons, and you're absolutely correct. In one state, in several prisons in the New York State system, the coach approach actually decreased it to 5%, which is astonishing. So there's so much actual statistics out there on how programs like this do work, and it just is a matter of getting the word out there. You know, we get love letters, as Renee said, and one of them that we recently got was from a woman who said that she thought that she was just going to get a coach to help motivate herself to focus on more fundraising, and through the coaching she learned to communicate and appreciate her staff more, to predict what information not only her board needed, but what the community actually needed from them, as opposed to what they were ready to give. And you know, perhaps even more so, how to support her own wellness as a leader. Because what I found when we work with a lot of the leaders in these organizations is that they're on burnout, and we're going to lose people if we don't support them. Well, when we do, what happens is they not only meet their goals, they exceed them, their passion is renewed, and the community that they serve just really, really benefits from that. So, you know, there are a lot of stories, but I'm mindful of the time, so I am going to pass the torch to Darren.
Thanks, Donna. I think that Donna brings a really important point. So one of the things that we talk about within Mo is that we're helping young people become community ambassadors. And one of the ways that we do that is we gift to them a 5-day coach training program. So 3 days, 6 weeks in between practice, mentoring, supervision, and then 2 days to practice, and then the final day is to be qualified. And it's a foundation, so it's very early stages. But what it does is it gives them new life skills, and it gets them to go on that inner journey and to witness themselves, to build the self-confidence to be who they truly are, as well as equip them with some really, really useful skills, like learning to listen, for one. I'll share with you just a couple of stories. So I'm really proud of Tanzania. I went out to Tanzania in November. I didn't know that we were going to create a chicken farm. I got there, and within a day we realized that there was a great opportunity to create a chicken farm. We gifted them the equivalent of £5,000, which is about $8,000, and we built a chicken farm where there's 300 chickens. Now, as of 2 weeks ago, those chickens have started to produce eggs, which is feeding the elderly, supporting 5 women, and also then the profits from that are then going to be used to set up micro entrepreneurs. So people who want to become hairdressers, people who want to become seamstresses, you know, people who want to do small things for their local community. So I really genuinely don't know where that's going to end up. I'm learning lots of lessons, as I'm sure Patrick could share with us in Africa, and I'm sure, you know, there's going to be some challenges along the way. And then, similar to the guys, I've worked with some people that have come out of prison. I was on a call just before this with an organisation that's doing that, and it's hugely successful. But I'm going to share with you the story of Natalia, because as we talk right now, Natalia is flying from the UK to San Francisco. Natalia, 14 months ago, she's Polish, she's 25, she's really bright, and she was working in a really bad job. And she said to me, Darren, all I want to do is draw. I love drawing. Long story short, she resigned from her job. I employed her within set her up in a business. We gave her a corporate mentor, a corporate coach, and then I mentored her on a sort of weekly basis as well. And now she is all over the world being a speed drawer for conferences. So if you want to find out about her, you can find out about her on our website. So I'm able to share her story. Stuff works, and the more that we can collectively share those stories, you know, the better the world will be, and the more impact and influence we can have in the world. So that's my stories. Renee.
So, like Darren, we've done some gifting of live experiences. As I spoke about earlier, the Collaboratorium is one way we do that. And one of our fellows attended the Collaboratorium and also had a one-to-one coach. And her name's Naomi Natali. And Naomi had a dream that on the National Mall in Washington, D.C., that she would put her exhibition of 1 million bones to protest genocide. Well, after 3 years and a lot of support from Support TED coaches and mentors and other people, it came to fruition the weekend of June 8th. And their 1 million bones were laid on the National Mall to protest genocide. And it caught the attention of people like Desmond Tutu, who's now talking about it. So that's an example of how we're making an impact and how one person's journey can impact lots of people through and inspire them to want to support her. Another story is that we have somebody working in the Democratic Republic of Congo, and he, during all his trips, he gets worn down quite a bit, and resilience was a big issue. So he works with a one-on-one coach. He too came to the Collaboratorium, and a group of coaches worked with him using various methodologies to give him the tools he needed to go back and to deal easily, or more easily, I should say, with the community. As you know, it's a war-driven community. There's witchcraft, there's killing, there's violence as a daily event. And using the tools and conversations with his coach and the mentors that come through Support TED, he has been able to find a way to reach out to the tribes and to the rest of the community to form some relationships and create more safety around his work, which are individual farms to help people move out of poverty and have food on their table. And he's been very successful at that to date. So pretty much that's what we do. And those are some of our stories. Patrick, do you want to share yours?
No, I did mine.
Oh, you did yours. Okay, so let's move on now.
Questions?
Okie doke.
Yeah.
We have a huge number of questions coming through. Okay. Is it possible to use these approaches as complementary aids to disintoxication addiction programs? Disintoxication addiction programs. Does anybody want to take that?
I can speak to that as a recovered psychologist. I think, yeah, because let me not get too wordy here. A lot of research in addiction has to do with the fact that it's a lack of purpose. That's what's missing that leads to a deep addiction and ongoing addiction. I actually wrote an article years ago about beyond the 12 step using the coach approach in that. And I think the idea of that is that then the person's not diagnosed as broken. That coaching is about designing your future. How would you like your life to be? And yes, there's some treatment needs that are there, but ultimately the person has to decide to replace the life they want with the life that they're living. And I think the coach approach can be quite powerful in that.
Thank you very much for that, Patrick. Excuse me. Okay. Okay, is it the case that most of the funding that you gain for this work, does it require a non-profit status? I'm going to ask Donna that question.
Can you repeat that, please?
Does most of the funding that you gain, does that require a non-profit status in order to receive that?
Well, yes to the one that we get. Certainly, I have known of nonprofits where they've gone to family and friends, or now there's Kickstarter. There's actually, I can't think of the name of it, but there's a Kickstarter type thing for nonprofit organizations. But the approach that the Coach Initiative took was to apply for our 501c3, which we did rather rapidly so that we can apply for a lot of the grants that require that we have that status, and it certainly makes it easier to track funding and taxes to have that. So if you're going to start your own nonprofit, I highly encourage you in the United States to get the 501c3, and I'm not sure what it is in other countries, but I'm sure there's an equivalent.
Yeah, I mean, would it be helpful if I
Hello, Darren?
be helpful if I picked up on the UK?
Yes, please.
As Ben knows, because can you hear me, Ben? Hello?
Yes, we can. Sorry, there's a bit of a
Go
delay.
ahead, you were going in and out, but
Please
we
carry
can
on.
hear you.
I'm here, but I don't understand what you're saying.
Okay, so can you hear me now? Okay, guys.
Yes.
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 Great. Sorry about that. So what I was saying was that it took me a long time to decide what model to use. Personally, I'm not a great fan of the sense of charity because it didn't necessarily reflect to me adding value, and that's my personal perspective. Even though I sit in the charitable sector, I've got a not-for-profit, I've got a charity, and I've also got my own limited company. But I'll tell you this story. We started off by me funding Mo Foundation. And now, even though we're gifting 85% of the places on our course, this year we'll put 125 people through that. The money we make from the other people who know what we're doing, who want to gift to Mo, and also get value for themselves, more than pays for and compensates for the cost of the organisation. So what we've done is what I call purposeful capitalism. We've built a model that sits, within the capitalist space because it's driven to make money. It's also social because it's driven to make a difference and driven by a purpose bigger than money. But what we've been able to do is really add value to people. And then the other thing I'd say as a top tip is I'm very fortunate that I know a couple of people who are very wealthy and they've joined my trustee board and they're very happy to help out. So they're my top tips.
Super. Thank you very much for that, Darren. Okay. Another question. Do you believe, I think we'll post this to Renee. Do you believe that younger coaches can make a difference, even if they are not as seasoned than the panel members? How do you suggest to get credibility within the corporate world?
So, Ben, I believe that younger coaches can make a difference, even if they're not as seasoned. If they bring some type of experience, any kind of experience, I think that it matters not their age, but how well they can coach. And and that they have the time and grade in the coaching. So I believe that they can make a lot of difference. And they have a unique perspective that older coaches don't have. They actually may be more relevant in some cases, and maybe in other cases they're not. But I think that their contribution is no less great. Now, as far as the corporate world, I think that's outside of our scope a little bit, because we're talking about 10 fellows and we're talking about social transformation in other ways. Maybe one of the other coaches can speak to that, but that's would not be my area of focus right now.
I can share. So when we began the coaching training, we started with just young people, and typically these were young people from charities. Some of them didn't have a home, they'd been drug or alcohol dependent. That was over a year ago now, and now what we've done is we've brought our corporate clients and our older mentors and our young people together. And the reason is that our corporate clients have said it's absolutely refreshing to meet young people that are just so honest, so genuine. I don't like to overuse the word, but really authentic. Our young people walk into that first day and they don't have a job title. They're just who they are. Questions our coaching team asks them is, who are you? Not what's your job, who are you? And it brings a really refreshing difference to our corporate clients.
Thank you very much for that, Darren. Let me see what other questions we have. Could you highlight how one can have NGOs look beyond their survival and give their people a chance to be coached? I'm going to hand that maybe Donna or Patrick.
Very often when they come looking for coaching, it's because they realize that they are in survival mode and they need more, or because they are in survival mode and they don't know where to go. And so they turn to coaching. Generally, somebody in the organization has been coached, so they know the value of it. But I think that all of us would agree that one of the first things that we do after we get some clarity around where they're at is to begin to provide them with the opportunity to look out further to understand the impact of organizations and to get out of that survival funk, because that's basically all it is. I mean, yes, they are in survival mode often, but generally the people who are working within the organizations have passion for their cause, and with passion you can overcome anything.
Super. Thank you for that. Got a
Ben,
question.
could you repeat the question? I'll give it a shot if you
Um,
want. Okay, go ahead.
that's going to be a challenge to go back to the question. Sorry, I've just jumped through to. Okay, here we go. Could you highlight how one can have NGOs look beyond their survival and give their people a chance to be coached?
Yeah, what came to mind for me is my experience in Tanzania when I sat down with the NGO that I was actually being on safari with. I mean, we were learning about tribal leadership and tribal culture. I asked him how many NGOs were in Arusha, Tanzania, and he said 50, and none of them talk to each other. So I think the lesson is that NGOs need to, non-governmental organizations in the U.S. nonprofits, need to be willing to have collaborative conversations. Don't hold everything so close to your heart that you don't share and be inquisitive about what could be. Capacity and sustainability comes from, meeting the needs that are there, not the needs you think are there. And if I could really just share a quick story, it's a metaphor, and it's very quick. When I was in Tanzania, we were going with different tribes each week. It was a 3-week trip, and then we'd have fire circle in the night. We went on a hunting trek with a tribal member out into the bush. And in Tanzania, they have what's called a honey guide. It's a bird. It's in other parts of the world too. But when you go out into the bush and the tribe people are looking for honeycomb and fresh bee larvae, very high nutritional value for them, they follow a bird called the honey guide that guides them to the right tree where the honeycomb may be found. And this is not a myth, it's actually a truth. And then the story goes, and this is a truth too, that if you don't leave any honey for the bird, the next time you go looking for honey, that bird will make a lot of noise so that when you're hunting animals, you can't capture them. It will disturb your hunting trek because you didn't leave any honey for the bird. And I think the metaphor there is that we can't hold on to the honey. If we find some, we need to share it. We need to be willing to share the path and understand that the best results come from collaboration. I think that's the way I'd answer that.
Thank you for that, Patrick. Okay, do we want to move on to the next section?
Sure.
Okay. Sorry, I don't have the list in front of me. Can you take the lead?
Yes. So we wanted to talk a little bit about the lessons learned and how to inspire each of us to go forth into the world and do good. And I think that if you listened to what we all had to say, you'll have heard one thing that was really important, which is that none of us went on this as a loner. We all collaborated. We found other people who shared our vision. We found other people that we inspired to share our vision. And, it does take a village. It takes a global village to make things happen on a global scale or even on a local scale. I would encourage you also to listen that we all had a big vision. It's okay to have a small vision and collaborate with people. It's okay to start small even though you have a big vision, but to have a big vision, to believe that you can have an impact in the world will inspire you to actually do so. Another thing that we kind of touched on, but we didn't actually say it, so I want to say it in so many words, is that nonprofits are a business. And it's not enough to join a nonprofit or to start a nonprofit just because you have that passion, but you have to recognize that you're going to go about it as a business and not just a dream. I think Darren said that they approach it as a capitalist vision, and that's true even when you are a 501c3. You need to remember that you're approaching this, you have taxes to pay, you have payroll to pay, you have all kinds of reporting and all kinds of emailing and communications and getting out and speaking and raising funds. So you have to make sure that if you don't have those skills, that you either get the skills or you find people to work with you to do that. And then the last thing that I want to say before I pass it on to Darren is that you have to have passion. I've had so many people, coaches and others, come to me and say, I just really want to give back, but I'll tell you, I'm working as an executive director in this nonprofit, and it's, I'm not succeeding. I'm feeling frustrated. The morale is low. I'm not paying my bills. And the answer is, if you don't have passion for the organization or the dream, it's not going to happen. If you don't have the resources, it's not going to happen. So make sure that the dream is big, the collaborations are there, the business plan is in place, and you'll succeed. Darren?
Thanks, Donna. If I think back just to 3 or 4 years ago, I wouldn't have told you my personal story. I would have given you a spin. I would have told you something that I was very comfortable with. So I think the first lesson learned is that, as I found my voice and as I started to share it, and I started to be more courageous, I was genuinely really worried about how that would land with people. But actually, people have really been receptive, and I find myself now on this panel talking to you about the insights and journey I've been on. So that's my first tip: is be really courageous and be bold and be brave, because I think it does take courage to share your voice. I think the second thing I wanted to say was, there's that great saying: if a seed, I say adapt. Don't try and try again. Adapt. But I think it's really important that you do something because you find it, you love it, you absolutely love it, which links to Donna's point about passion. do it because you absolutely love to do it, and you would do it even though there's no money in it. So I would do Mo even though I love it, because it's about my mum's legacy. It's about committing to something I said at her funeral. I will do this even if I have to pay to do it, because I love to do it, and I made a commitment to my mum. And this is about her lasting legacy, you know, for me. I think another thing is you've got to, if you're going to be the person that's, you know, part of the executive team, the CEO, you've got to become comfortable with sharing a purpose and sharing a story. So I talk about chief storytelling. You've got to be able to start to tell the story in a compelling way. And then to the point that Donna was sharing, you don't do this in isolation. I've got an amazing team of people around me, and actually I'm more proud of them than I am of me, because I just had a small acorn of an idea and they're starting to really grow that, and I'm very proud of it. In terms of some very quick top tips, get your cash cow. So I'm very focused on making sure that I've got a very clear cash cow. I live in a portfolio world, so I have to make sure I work, you know, with my corporate clients, with my entrepreneurial clients, and with my chief executives of charities, so that I can afford to do the things I do. The other thing I'd say is, if you're running your own organization, get yourself a VA. They're really, really important, and they're brilliant. And then the final thing is, you know, dare to dream and take focused action. I'm now going to hand over to Renee.
Thank you, Darren. So I want to ditto everything that Donna and Darren said up to this point. I concur totally with it. And what I'd like to add is that it's also really important to have standards and establish boundaries for what you can give and the type of people you want to invite to participate. We have many more coaches apply that we can accommodate. And we have had to establish some pretty high, rigorous standards for accepting coaches in order to make sure we can manage the requests we get. So another thing is that a big thing that we learned is that pro bono status doesn't matter. When people are inspired, they're going to want to participate. Like I said, we have a lot of requests. We also, our current coaches also always come up with new ideas, new ways to coach, group coaching, webinars, whatever they could possibly dream of, they do, and they want to donate the time to provide it for the fellows. So as long as coaches are getting something back emotionally that inspires them, they're going to really want to participate and to give their time. And we're very grateful for every coach, highly grateful for them. Also, one more thing is that we've noticed that for coaching the fellows, they are very brilliant. They think fast, they create fast, they can make connections, but there's a gap because in the personal issues, things as easy as setting up a bank account or getting life insurance, they're stuck. They're totally paralyzed, and they need some practical take off your coaching cap help with those issues in order to be coached on anything else. So we find that our coaches have to go up and down in extremes a lot of times. And to do so, we find that transformational coaching, something like ontological coaching, or looking at the experience versus transactional, what you're going to do next, is probably the best approach. Patrick, your turn.
Wow, beautifully said. I took notes for my three colleagues here. This is very useful. My tips that I thought about, some may weave in and out of what's been said before, but firstly, with this idea of social transformation, is think global, act local. You may have a great idea of what you can do in some far reach of the world, but look in your own backyard because the same needs are there. And that's a good place to start. It may reach out global and become big, but start small, as Darren said, and act local. Secondly, and I've said this over and over, collaborate. You know, don't hold your cards to your chest. Don't try to close all your windows on your idea. Share, collaborate, get helpers. It's your idea, and if it's got legs, it'll run. But get help, you know, get assistance and share with others what you need. That kind of goes along with, even in the coach approach, it goes with your organization too. Engage the unusual voices. I keep coming back to that. A lot of times NGOs and nonprofits aren't getting the coaching to the people they serve. We need to have conversation with the people who are getting the service for improving their community or their culture or their organization. So engage the unusual voices, those who usually aren't at the table. Enjoy the organic process of the coach approach. The hallmark of coaching is being comfortable with not knowing, asking questions that you don't know the answer to. That's the organic process of acting as if and asking questions like, I wonder, just in curiosity, let's just see what happens if we go this direction. And there are no failures, only results. Pro bono. A lot of people think, yeah, you give pro bono coaching, but it doesn't mean for free. Now, it may be for free, but the Latin word means for the good. So you can reduce your regular coaching fee. You can give a scholarship. You can make enough money over here in this bucket so that you can give free coaching to someone for no money, but it's not free. What are they going to do for you or for the coaching, or how are they going to pay it forward? So it's always for the good. Now, don't think of that word as meaning for free. And then lastly, a metaphor I use a lot in our coaching, and I think it fits for doing social transformation work too, is keep the fire burning. You think of the tribal metaphor of someone had to carry the coal so that when they started the fire up, there it was, the fire starter. If we can keep the fire burning, that's what coaching does. That's what we do with our executive clients. They've got good ideas. If they don't have coaching for a certain period of time, they'll just stay good ideas. And eventually they can coach themselves. They'll keep their fire burning. But I think that's the last metaphor that I think works not only in our own lives, but also in the lives of the organizations that we may coach.
Okay,
Back to you.
Thank you very much for that, Patrick. Okay, now I think we are close to the end of the session. What a brilliant, enlightening session. Again, we've had a huge number of questions come in, and we're just not going to be able to handle them all. I'm terribly sorry, everyone. However, if you have got questions, I must encourage you to jump onto the Facebook wall, facebook.com/WBECS. Please continue the conversation on there. As you can see on the screen right now, you can see the contact details of Darren, Renee, Patrick, and Donna. And I would encourage you to get in contact if this is something that has really resonated with you, and I'm sure it has. You became a coach not because you're focused around commercial interests and making loads of money. You became a coach because, and there's no reason why you can't make lots of money, don't get me wrong, but you became a coach because you like helping people. And what better way than to help those that most need help. And there's so much we can do. As I'm sure you saw from the note, well, I hope you read the note that I sent out, a not so important note regarding my personal question. One of my personal goals is to raise a significant amount of capital, and I'm not going to do that through venture capital. So I'm going to just do that through things like WBECS and a number of other business ventures that I'm going to be working with in the coaching industry, make a lot of money, and then build the largest network of business and executive coaches in the world, which we already have done. We have about 35,000 now. And then take those two things and do some of the work and support and kind of plug that in perhaps into some of the work that Darren, Renee, and Patrick and Donna are already doing, but also do some of our own projects. So I'd love to lead some projects into Southeast Asia, South America, and Africa, and some of the lesser privileged parts of the world. That's my own personal mission. That's all I am really in business for. But anyhow, what I'd like to do is ask if there's any final questions. We've probably got 2 or 3 minutes for questions, maybe 1 or 2 last ones to put there. I've got a question here directly for Darren. Darren, how do you promote a purpose bigger than money?
Well, I think you just start doing it. And then I think it's about really role modeling it. So I don't just talk about collaboration, we're doing it. So if you do want to have a look at the Mo Foundation website, you'll see there's lots of stories about people like Patrick, Renee and Donna, all of whom their story is going to be uploaded to the Mo website soon. So there's their personal stories. And then what we also do is share the organisation stories. So, you know, we see ourselves as a collaborative network. We're there to champion purposeful entrepreneurs, leaders and coaches. So if people have got an idea and they want to promote it, come and ask us and we'll get it loaded up. And I've got a team of people who do that. I don't actually do the nuts and bolts, as you probably imagine, but I've got a VA who does all of that. So it's about being really genuine with your story and then really role modeling it within, you know, what you do, but do it because you really believe in it is the bottom line, I think. And people start to pick up on that.
Okay, and this is the final question, and this goes for, I'm going to ask all of you to do this if that's okay. And that's to ask, how do you feel that we can influence the corporate world? How do you feel we as coaches can influence the corporate world to get more involved in social transformation? So I'm going to start with Donna. So how can we influence the corporate world as coaches to get more involved in social transformation?
Well, you know, it's interesting. I mentioned earlier I was part of the Transformational Leadership Council, and we've actually just started an initiative where we're holding meetings with Fortune 100 CEOs and top management to do exactly this, to encourage them to begin to look at not just what's good for their organization, but how to impact the world in a better way. Because in today's world, corporations are where a lot of the power lies to make change in the world. So I think it's starting a dialogue, whether it's one-on-one or in a group. It's bringing to corporations the type of work that we're doing in the world and collaborating with them on making changes. I'm working with someone who has the Graham's Foundation for premature infants and their parents, and they're collaborating with some major corporations to make change in the world. So I think the collaborative approach, again, is one of the best ways to do that. Communication, collaboration.
Thank you for that, Donna. Can I perhaps hand over to Renee?
So I think that we're seeing this more and more now with corporations. People are no longer stagnant in bringing their desires for social transformation to be part of it to the corporate world. And I know that with the organizations I work in, I easily bring a TED Talk or some other story of social transformation to the work I do. And many of the folks start requesting more information. And I think more and more corporations are saying this is something we have to do. It's not okay just to make money and be a consumer focused organization. We have to contribute to what's going on in the world. And I think that you see that through, the Clinton Global Initiative is a great example where there's CEOs or, that are getting involved with social transformative work. So I truly believe that the more we do this work and the more we are transparent about it and not keep it hidden, the more corporations are going to wake up and say, we want to do more of this. It's important to us. Because corporations are made up of people and people want to make an impact. That's my experience. Patrick?
Yeah, my hope is that it's a trend. I mean, we could answer this question and say, you know, if you know somebody who knows somebody that can get your foot in the boardroom door, maybe. But the best way is to start letting the evidence that's out there of the corporations that are doing social entrepreneurism or purposeful capitalism, as Ben said, they're doing well while doing good. They can still make money and they can do good things. In some of our projects, we've gotten local, visible corporations that are in the community to be sponsors of our training. When we didn't have the funding or the people didn't have the training budget, is if there's and I won't use a brand name, but a well-known brand name that's visible, maybe they'd like to sponsor, because it is branding. They still want to make money, but I believe there's a trend that's very apparent that the millennial generation and probably the trickling of theory of Generation Y, they're very purposeful about social transformation. They're very involved in things that change communities without being loud about it. And I think because they're the employees that are maturing in the organizations will heed to their desire to have social change be part of the corporate message. So that's my hope, and I think we see it happening.
Thanks, Patrick. I'm going to say three things. First off, I think we as a coaching profession and community need to look at our unexplored assumptions about corporates and also our own fears, as well as helping them to look at their unexplored assumptions about what it means to be a capitalist and also their fears. So I think we can use the coaching approach to do that. I think the second thing is corporations are a collection of human beings. And what we've spent the last hour and a half talking about is that all human beings, not just coaches, are actually hardwired to make a difference. And I'm very lucky to work at a very senior level in some big mining companies and some big banking organizations. And trust me, they really are looking to change. They know they have to change, not because of a superficial need, but because, as Patrick was just sharing, there is a groundswell within their generational Ys and their millennials who are saying you need to be different. Not just that, 85% of consumer spends comes from women. And women are saying, you need to change. You're not a good brand. That's no good. You just have to look at the news across the world about the likes of Google and Facebook and others who are not paying enough tax. And the last thing I'd say is within Mo Foundation, three of our sponsors, we've got a global mining company, a global banking organisation and a UK telecommunications organisation that are sponsoring and supporting us and giving us space to do what we do. They don't want to shout about it. They want to do it very quietly. That's why I'm not telling you their names. But what I'm saying is there is a shift. It is starting to happen. But actually, this is where I'm saying, as us as a community, let's lead the charge. Let's go in and help these organisations to raise their consciousness, as Patrick was so eloquently sharing earlier.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that, Darren.
Over to you, Ben.
Thank you. And thank you to our entire panel, Renee, Darren, Donna and Patrick. What an absolute super session. Very enlightening. I think I know for a fact that this is going to have inspired a number of coaches to take action, to get involved. It will have answered a lot of questions that they had around, what does it take? What are the realities? I think a lot of people have pipe dreams that they don't make realities because they don't have the clarity of actions and what it actually is going to take them to put into action. And I think you've helped with that. So I hope and I pray that means that coaches across the world, and we'll expect probably at least 1,000 or more coaches to listen to this session. We've had about 200 or so, 250 tune in today. Including the phone callers, probably about 350. And so, take action. At least go and research it. And if you really feel compelled, please get in contact with some of our panelists because they'll be able to help you as well. So thank you very much for this session. We've come to an end now. So I am going to give a final thank you to everyone for joining us. Please post your feedback on the Facebook wall, facebook.com/WBECS. We love the feedback. Please just post it on the wall or wherever you feel confident doing that. I know there's already some feedback on there, which is amazing. And I will look forward to you joining us for the final session of today, which is in about 3 hours' time, I believe, where we have Brian Underhill, who's going to be talking all about how and why corporates, how they source executive coaches. And as I said before, Brian is probably hired or been involved in the hiring of more executive coaches than anyone I've ever met in the entire coaching industry. And as you can imagine, I know quite a few people, millions and millions and millions. I mean, he's done multi-million-dollar contracts in one contract. of coaching services. So he's a guy that really does know, and he's done a lot of research into it as well. So certainly worth attending to get some great insights. Okay, everyone, take care. And a final huge thank you to our panel. What a fantastic session. Really, really, really done us proud. So thank you so much. So take care, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.